Well, everybody, Max and Max's Models here. Welcome aboard. If you're watching this, it should be Saturday night, and we are, I got to be careful how to say this. This is the dead stream. No, we're not dead. Well, I hope not. I mean, right now it's a couple of days in advance. We're pre-recording this so we can have something to put out content Saturday night like normal, so you can feel like you're watching a live stream. Of course, you're free to leave comments down below in the comment section, but we don't have a live chat or anything because this isn't live. This is the dead stream. And
So you will all be chatting and commenting to yourselves.
well, they can chat to each other down there in the comment thread, below. But now, to kick off with, we don't really have anything particularly special planned. You can see behind me here a lot of the models that Mr. Van Osh said. A lot of them are back in the box, and I've gotten all you guys' emails and stuff, and I have big plans for all this. This is not the last we'll be hearing of these. Plus, actually, the last video will have dropped yesterday when we're doing this. I got it set for Friday night because I wanted to parse them out. Partly because of problems we had with Zoom, but also it would have been an hour and a half video with Mike and I want to thank Mike Machat of Celebrating Aviation with Mike Machat for coming out. And we said, we'd sit down for an hour, and I think both of us knew that was going to be a fantasy. But
we can't go more than a day without something from Max.
Hey, there you go. And just
like
to
sunshine.
and just to get it out of the box, Godzilla. So there, we didn't forget that. And but one of the things Mike asked about was the F9, the Revell F9F Panther. This is I got the little sticker in the back here. It goes, Mr. Huh? The Cougar. I'm sorry, Cougar. Yes. And Mr. Van Osh is incredibly well organized. He's got a little card in here. 1954 kit, 1:52 scale, has early stand. And for those who didn't see the video, that's one of these 3-prong stands that broke very easily. And if any of those prongs break, you are screwed. You have this ball that goes into the belly of the plane and clips into the stand. I'm not going to try and force it in there because I don't want to break it because these are getting kind of rare. And for those who are familiar with those full moon stands, they have a wire that goes around them. They came out of these because they were getting so many complaints about these breaking because we all know acrylic isn't very flexible at all. So if they'd made these out of the regular styrene they made the airplane, probably wouldn't have been a problem. But that's a guess on my part. Mike also asked if this one had the Aurora, which just came with a little form of the pilot in the fuselage half, and you put them together and there was just a little nub of a pilot sticking up. No, this one does have an empty cockpit section. It has a one-piece stamp. I'll put it on my forehead to give you some contrast. It has a one-piece stamped cockpit with a pilot figure, which actually does have a little bit of detail to it. It's not that bad. Given that you won't be able to see that much of it once it's in the airplane, I think it's perfectly adequate. Of course, it'll be a closed canopy model. It's one piece. And Mr. Van Osh, when I opened this up, he had all this in a big plastic bag, and he has this little plastic bag with the parts, and inside was another little plastic bag. And I'm going, and the first thing I asked myself was, and this little inside bag was torn open a little bit so you get the parts. So why is he put a bag inside of a bag? Oh, crap, that's why. And I found all the parts, but 3 of them immediately made their reverse gravity, went up outside of the bag and into the floor. And there. And but I wanted to address that because Mike had specifically asked about that. And of course, these early generation kits aren't that complicated. The wheel wells are very shallow, but and they've got the little impressions where the decals go. But the quality of this plastic it's really nice. It's incredibly smooth. You can tell the molds are pretty new. There's no flash. There's no flash on here at all. And I guess
And also
54,
it's
it's probably
molded
first year
in the-
run.
And also it's molded in the color of the plane,
Yep.
Yeah. Which later on, model kit companies got away from that and made everything in white. And then they went back to molding in color because they wanted to attract the younger audience because they didn't have to paint them.
Mm-hmm. And
So
you
it's
could
kinda
build this
odd
right
that-
out of the box. Yeah, and put the decals. And you'd have something that would look good on your shelf.
Yeah. Now, does it have the original instructions?
Yes. Yes, it does. It has
Does
the
it
original decals.
Does it show in the instructions the way to put or keep the wheels on the axles, which we're all familiar with?
And he also wrapped the instructions in plastic, so they're old. This is almost exactly what 71 years old. So very gently. That is the entire instruction sheet. The other side is one big advertisement.
There you go. You own the space. You might as well use it.
But there is the entire instruction sheet. There is some text here. History of there's the history of the airplane. List of parts. They actually have a parts list you can order. It's got an order form here, I guess, if you're missing a part. Read this first. I got to switch glasses. Read this first. Carefully, mind you, in big letters. Carefully. Carefully read all instructions before starting to assemble this kit. That reminded me of something that from the 7th grade, or 9th grade. Anyway, this kit makes sure your model will be among the best. And you'll be proud of it. Your precision molded plane is made of high quality styrene plastic. I have to agree with that. Use any good brand of polystyrene cement. The only paints to use are enamel paints. Now big letters. Now read this. Spread a newspaper on a table where you are going to work. Yeah, I'm sure they got plenty of letters from angry moms.
Yeah.
This is so you won't lose any parts. Place your polystyrene cement at one corner. Get a small cloth to wipe any cement from your fingers and have a few rubber bands handy to hold parts together while the cement is drying. A good model builder always has his tools ready, and these are your tools. Take out the parts of the kit, spread them on the instruction sheet. It literally says spread them on the instruction sheet. Now identify each piece with its picture. As soon as you get to the numbers of all the pieces, you're ready to build your model plane.
Just like we all do it now.
Yep. And in addition, it has textual instructions step by step. So it's surprisingly detailed.
Does
Please
it
don't
show
read
you?
them all.
Does it show you how to keep the wheels on the axles?
No, it only in the picture it just shows the wheel going on the axle. That's it. I don't see anything about heating it up. I think it was more of a monogram thing.
No,
Well,
that
let's
was a Revell
see.
thing.
Let's see if there's any text instructions about that. Fuselage, horizontal stab in a similar manner. Horizontal stab, cement upper half left wing because it's got 2-part wings. Next, cement right wings to fuselage. Here we go. Cement the right nose landing wheel door. Oh, okay, that's the door. So the door's going first. Cement the right landing gear, part 13, to the underside of the wing. Now, in a similar manner, 14 on the other side of the wing. These door sections should be cemented in an open position if you want your model to finish with the gear down. Place the nose wheel on the axle of the nose wheel strut yoke. when I got it around airplanes and cars and stuff, I knew some of the nomenclature because they actually usually use the technical nomenclature. You know that, oh, that's a yoke or that's a trunnion because it said it on your model instructions. Okay. Do not cement wheel to axle. Now cement the nose strut wheel yoke part to the nose wheel strut. Place landing gear wheel on axle pin of the right landing gear strut and left wheel strut. The end of axle pin can be fastened with a heated screwdriver. So they do it the way Monogram does it. They just don't have any pictures of it. So they.
Now think of this. Think of some young kid, maybe 5 or 6 years old. This is his first or second kit, and going to his mother and saying, "You have to turn the stove on so I can heat the screwdriver so I can melt a part onto my plane." Kit.
Or, hey, Dad, can I borrow your cigarette lighter?
Yeah.
What are you doing, son? It looks like you're cooking meth there.
Didn't know what it was back then.
Model airplane glue, Dad. Oh, you're not doing the huffy thing, are you?
I said screwdriver, not spoon.
And the two decals, one is the, of course, the decals to the side of the plane, and the other is for the stand. It's the Grumman decal. That's actually a really nice looking decal.
Nice decal. Too. Yeah.
What are the odds that those decals are still good?
You know, I was just debating that, Ken. This one, these are old and yellowed. I would buy replacement decals if I was going to build this. But this one, although I don't know, well, yeah, they're kind of yellowed a little bit. I mean, they're decals. They're 70 years old. What do you expect? But this one is not yellowed for some reason. I would put the restore fluid on top of it first and trim it out, but that I'm sure could probably still be used. What happens with a lot of these old decals, King, because you know me, I'm always trying to salvage the ones in the box no matter how bad they are, partly because I'm cheap, partly because I'm lazy, and partly because I want to see if I can do it. But well, a lot of times the problem with these decals is you go, hey, I put the restore fluid on them, I trimmed them off, I left them soaked for overnight, you know, or for a couple hours, and they finally lifted. You're like, yeah. And then you realize they've got virtually no stick, or they're extremely brittle. So you're laying all that Solvaset stuff on there, you know, and you put it on there. But then as soon as it dries, it starts to curl, and you keep gluing it back down. You might even go with some Tamiya ultra thin, just last ditch, or even white glue, you know, and last ditch effort. And then you're like, well, should I hit it with the solvent to get it to, because the stuff, and it's crapshoot. Sometimes the solvent does a trick. It acids it up, it bites in, you know, comes out okay. A lot of times it just shrink, you know, they just come apart. It's a total crapshoot. But I cannot be mad. Look, I've used Aurora decals that were 40, 50 years old, and to my amazement, they worked. But then I go out and look at the model sitting on the shelf a couple of months later, and half of them have flaked off or whatever. What do you expect? It's a little piece of, you know, thin printed material. You really expect it to last 7 decades? And
what are those decals made out of? Cellulite?
They're not all made out of exactly the same thing, but I actually did one little documentary on making decals, which, by the way, is an amazingly tedious procedure. And if I remember correctly, I'm sure somebody will be putting down in the comment section, but they're printed, and it's a water slide paper that normally adheres to the backing paper with like a sugar based. That's why the insects are eating mine up. So a lot of them have a sugar based glue on them. That's how come they soften in water. And but there are different kinds of decals and different ways of doing that. And I'm not talking about the vinyl decals. I'm talking about the model airplane water slides. And they go through a series of basic silk screen printings. You know, they're not all printed at one time. They're going to do all the whites, then all the reds, and all the, and every single decal sheet has to be hung out to dry. And I don't hear you, Ken. Oh, but every single decal sheet's got to, okay, it's got to be dried. Now, there was one company, and I forget which one it was. It might have been NPC, for a while that put all their decals on one solid sheet. So when you got the decals out, you had to cut them out. And then the plastic they used, or whatever they used, the film they used, was so hard it wouldn't conform, it wouldn't stick. They were the worst decals ever. They had a lot of them on their customizing, like they would have these, customized what?
You gotta focus.
The camera just does it. It's odd because I got a lot of light in here this time. You sure it's just not my glasses?
No,
You're still fuzzy.
you're fuzzy.
And I haven't even been drinking.
Huh. Maybe you should start.
Let me do a reset on the focus here.
Can't hurt. There
There
you
we
go.
go. So, but a lot of the companies, they actually, when they make the material the decal goes on, they have to make the shape that the ink's going to go on, so you get independent decals. And it is the companies that do it. I stumbled onto the microscale people one time down in Miami, I think it was. They're artists. They are extremely secretive. They wouldn't let me look at the computers or anything. I was in there buying stuff, and they were like putting blankets over the computer so I couldn't see what they were doing. And they would not answer them. So apparently the decal business is pretty. Steve, some of these guys that make decals for various kits. I know Salvino has his made. Usually the decals are made by Cartographics, or they're made by a third party. Rarely does the company make their own decal. A big company like Monogram might. But a lot of
No,
companies,
they're
the
always
guys at
farmed out.
Atlantis have their decals. They outsource that, right?
Yes, it's all farmed out. And it's usually done in concert with whoever the guy is who's doing the box art.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah, and the Atlantis decals I used are okay, but sometimes they're not like on the 727. They were a little, and I don't mind this because I can deal when the decals are a little too long or a little too big. You just trim it off. What blows is when you get them, they're a little too small. And
Yeah.
that's happened on some kits. The Atlantis kits on the 727, the decals didn't quite line up with everything, and I was like, you know what, that's not a big deal. This is a low fidelity model anyway. It's an old Aurora kit, and
And the other problem is that when you get decals that have doors and windows in them,
mhm.
and then they come up too short, you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah, yep, that happens. On the 141, I had a couple of minor issues with some of the door decals. Not a big deal, um, but they're they had these decals. Like, where does this go? I'm not seeing anywhere where this thing goes. So, well, let's just put it here. Yeah, but that's not the end of the world. And the one thing I've learned, one of the worst monogram kits I ever built, turns out was an old Aurora kit, and that was the A7 Corsair 2. And it's funny, when I was building it, because I built enough Aurora aircraft to know that Aurora kind of has this thing for just having the slotted wings go into flat plastic with nothing inside to hold it. And so wing sag and stuff like that is a thing. And so is that your dinner, Ken?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Steve and I will chat while Ken
That's a good
feeds.
idea. I will go dark here for a few minutes so y'all don't have to see me
I tell you what, Ken, I'll just unpin you and make you little. Now you're real small. Nobody cares. You want to close the camera, you can. Just tell me when you're back, but you can leave it up if you want. No, he killed the audio. That's the important thing, so we don't have to listen to him masticate. But anyway,
let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
On all of these kits, have you opened every one of them and looked at them?
no, I have not.
No.
In fact, I've only opened a few of them. The nice thing is that they are not taped, and so, uh, but, and I just heard from Mr. Von Osh today. Uh, Couple of B-52s. One's a tall box and one's a low box. Okay, and what happened was apparently um, they the B-52 boxes have different depths, and I had opened one of them and looked at all the parts, and magnificent uh, plastic and molding. I mean, Revell did a great job. And that plastic, the quality was so high that you could tell the molds were new when these were made or hadn't been used too much because everything was just so smooth. Not, I have yet to see a hint of flash on any of these, which kind of tells you that they are original runs or close to it. But when I put it all back in the box, I could not get it organized so the box would go back all the way down. And I'm trying to, how did I get this out of here? And what it is, it was the low box, and which is I think the older one. And it was just, okay, so there's like it's like a jigsaw puzzle. There's a way to do it where everything in the box sits, but if you don't do it that way, one thing I will tell you is that all of the kits are already off the runner trees. Okay, here's all the parts. So there's no runner trees in here. All the parts that you need to build it are here, but he's gotten rid of and everything's bagged. The instruction sheet and decals are separately bagged. Here's the bag with the wings and everything. That, in fact, this goes in here.
Every kit that's made, they have a sequence that the kits go in the box. And when they take the first shots and they have the boxes, somebody figures out how the parts all fit in the box so that it'll close. And then what they do is they pass that sequence on to the people down the line who are actually putting the plastics in the box. Yeah. Well, otherwise you get that.
I have to figure out what the formula is here to get this to sit.
Well, the problem is you got stuff in the bag, so they're not all laying flat because you got the bag in there.
It took a lot of patience for him to get all this in there just right.
Put the big pieces in first and then the little ones around them.
Not always work that way, Ken, believe it or not.
No, yeah. And okay, let's try putting the bag in first. This was all in the bag, so there is a way to do it. I think I know. These wing fillets have to go down. There we go. I mean, it took as much patience to put these in the box.
As it does to put them together.
And it's still a little bit of pressure on the box. Some of it may be air pressure from the bag. It's still sitting up just a little bit. No, it's not from the bag. Okay.
So have you had like phone conversation with Mr. Van Osh?
I only through email. We haven't spoken.
I was wondering how he, curated all these things for all these years.
Well, judging, he did tell me he's 78. So, well, he's Mike's age. Excuse me. Blueberry tea. All right, there's got to be a way to do this. All right, let's try it this way. Let's put the big part in first. Oh, let's go this way with it. I can't put it that way. The tail will stick up. So it's got to, there has to be, could be this. Oh, it could be like this. Probably had the parts inside the, see one thing. The stand has a big, convex shape to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that needs to go down in one corner.
It's kind of like Tetris in 3D.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's you ever see that movie about the guy who went to buy Tetris in Russia?
No.
It's I think it was Finnish. It's an interesting little movie that was, I think, made in Europe, but about this computer guy from, I want to say it was Finland or somewhere, who wanted to buy Tetris to put on the civilian market. And then the camera's gotten there it goes. And just dealing with the Russian bureaucracy at the height of the Cold War over this game that he wanted to buy, and they were all so ultra suspicious and everything. And
of course they are, the Russians.
Got it. Voila.
There you go. You've qualified for a job at the Revell Poland factory, putting kids.
Now this one does have the tape, and the tape does line up. So
okay.
There's your There's your pedigree.
It was better the first time.
The he
So
also
when
sent
this
me an
is,
email that the tank, the motorized Revell M4 Sherman. He said that kit goes for around $300. Apparently, they're pretty rare. They didn't motorize very many of them.
meanwhile, of these 70 some odd kits, you said they were?
I think it was 107 total, with
Whoa.
about 77 or 78 different ones and a couple of repeats of a few of them. And is there anything in particular you want to me open the box on and look at?
Mm, do one of the ships.
Oh, happen to have one right here. This is actually a 2009 repop, and this is the USS Helena. Turns out one of the glue troopers has an uncle who was on it when she went down. Oh, this. Okay, yeah. Here's the instruction sheet. I can tell by the paper this is a more recent one. Not a super sophisticated. I mean, it looks like a good model, but not, you know. I think it was KSLC had emailed me and said that some of these Revell kits have inaccurate flat bottoms on them, so the kids can play with them, on the floor. And some of them don't have propellers and stuff, so they don't get knocked off. And this is still in the factory plastic, okay? Because this is it's an old kit, but it's a repop of an old kit. And this one actually has a little bit of flash, not bad, but the molds are no doubt decades older. And there's all of the smaller parts, and got a decal sheet which is much more modern and looks completely usable.
Well,
And of course, oh my gosh, do you remember? This is how I initially learned the Morse code. You remember when they put in the little flag?
yes, the flag.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
With all
And
the
you go nuts with getting a bolt, getting a thing of string from your thread from your mother's sewing kit
mm-hmm.
and running the lines up across the
Yep.
mass and putting the glue in them on.
Make your name or something out of it.
I remember when people used to do that on the doors of their car, they would have their initials in the flags.
Yeah, that was the only way of identifying a fellow sailor or something.
Mhm.
And but I learned Alpha Bravo Charlie Key by reading this. I learned it in a day. A friend of mine learned Morse code the same way. They had these things with Morse code on them. Actually, yeah, yep. This one's got the Morse code. I don't know if
That's not Morse code. Morse code is dashes and dots.
underneath
Can't
where
see.
it has like the flag, the phonetic name, and then the tiny dots and dashes under it.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't.
Can't
I
see
don't
that.
think this. I don't know if. I don't think this thing can zoom in on that.
No, you can't.
But
Focusing on you.
I'll see if I can't take a photo of this and do an overlay or something. In fact, let me grab a picture of it real quick. All right. Really? I just took this thing out of here.
Flip it over.
Entertaining. Watch them put the kids back in the box.
Ken, that's trickier than you may think.
Hey, Ken, did you look at the Firebird?
No, I haven't. I haven't opened up the box yet, but I'm sure it's fine.
I was just wondering if it was still in one piece. That's all.
Well, it doesn't rattle around very much when I shake the box.
Well, that means the T-roofs fell off and they're stuck in the interior. No, I still haven't
Seriously.
still haven't cleaned my workbench.
While he's trying to put that back in there, I found something I thought was really interesting. today, and I talked to Max about it. Maybe you could come too. There is
Which one?
a aviation museum, the Delta Airlines Aviation Museum in Atlanta. Have you heard about that?
No.
Okay. What makes it
What do you get
far more-
delayed when you want? What do you get delayed when you want to enter the museum?
what makes it far more
Well, you
interesting?
see what you do, Steve, is when you're delayed, you go rent the simulator and pretend that you're flying to the airport on time.
Yeah, Max, I was getting to that part.
Do they have a sim?
They have a full motion sim of a 737-200,
Oh, wow.
and you can get in it. You can buy time to fly this thing.
Ooh. How much is
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. In other words, training.
Maybe for you, for me, a
For
whole lot of
terrorists.
fun.
For terrorists.
Well, look at it this way. You don't have to pass the flight exam, right? You don't
Hmm.
have to make the instructor happy. You just fly it inverted underneath a bridge if
Oh,
you
Ken, that was my attitude on check rides.
They actually
you
show
just-
a video of them flying under the San Francisco Bridge.
Oh, we used to do that crap when we had spare time. You know, and do aerobatics in it and everything. I always told the instructors, hey, if I don't, the check airman, if I don't pass, you got to come back and spend more time with me in the future.
And you always got perfect scores, didn't you?
Passing, not perfect. Everything in aviation's sat, unsat, pass, fail. They don't do numerical scores except on written tests, and then it's still pass, fail. So they'll say, what do they call the guy that graduates at the bottom of his medical school class? Doctor.
Doctor. Or pilot.
Why was this thing so nice and flush, and now I still have a bulge? I mean, Christ, there's only 2 runner trees in this thing. What have I done?
Anyway, so I was thinking maybe we need to do a road trip to Atlanta, Steve.
Atlanta. Yeah.
Good, you can pick me up at the airport. I'm going to fly.
I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Atlanta's only about 5 hours from here, I think.
Yes, we used to drive it all the time. Yes, it's about 5 hours.
I got the bright idea, hey, if I turn it around, because that's going to make a difference in a rectangular box. It's like planes, trains, and automobiles. You're going the wrong way. How do they know where we're going?
Oh, they also, depending on the tour, they allow you to actually go inside the airplanes. They even have a 747 experience.
Yeah, you remember training in the 1900 at Jacksonville? You and I used to go out to the maintenance unit and chair fly in the cockpits, the airplanes that were down for maintenance.
Oh yeah, that was great. Sometimes they come up and say, "Hey, throw that switch for me." It's like, "Oh yeah."
Hey, can you hit the such and such? Sure. Which one is it? Oh, what's that? Is it that one? I think it's that one.
Oh yeah.
I just saw a thing on the news today that ultra rich people are buying 747s that are sort of at the end of their life and having them reconfigured as personal luxury jets.
Yep.
You can't imagine what it would cost to just fire that baby up and fly a short distance.
Yeah. Well, as long as you don't have to rebuild the engine.
What's that on?
747.
Oh yeah. It was a JT9 on that thing. The early 747s were there was a part wedged under it. That was part of the problem. Oh, there we go. This piece of the stand was cocked up under it, so let's see if it works now. When I was a kid, I could open up a model and close it up in 30 seconds with no problems. I don't recall having this trouble. And if I saw a kid on the shelf that the box was bulging up like that, like somebody's already been in there rifling it for parts. I knew to inspect it before I bought it. It's like buying eggs, I remember my mom at the grocery store, like opening and looking for broken eggs in a carton. I was like, you can't do that. We don't own that yet. And she's like, oh, I want to make sure they're not broken. I was like, ooh, I could apply that to models. There we go. Now it's all back together.
You want any cars in this lot?
No, no, no cars.
Uh,
Although I did get sent an email from I think it's from John Kitt that I might have forwarded to you. I think did I forward it to you about the
no.
place the model? Okay, let me.
I've also heard about a lot of people buying 737s and turning them into corporate jets too.
Well, Ken, generally speaking, I mean that has happened. Boeing does manufacture the BBJ, the Boeing business jet. Airbus does the same thing with the 320 series. They do make, but they'll make a corporate airplane out of any airframe. You know, if you've got the money, they're more than happy to do it.
Yeah, but if you get a used 737 that's still got some life in the frame, you could probably get one. I think I remember them. You could get them cheaper, like G5s, and they're a lot bigger.
Yeah, Ken, there's a reason. I saw a Learjet today for like 365 grand, an old 24B. And I was like, yeah, because you know how much fuel they drink? You got to have two pilots. Um there's a reason those airplanes are relatively cheap. And it has to do with that. First off, a lot of them have high time engines. Are coming up on very expensive overhauls. And they also the old ones, if you don't have the hush, very expensive hush kits on them, you can't even fly them in most places. And uh, okay, is this it? Yeah. This was from Fran. Did I forward you something from Fran?
No.
Here, I'm going to send it to you, Steve. It's a site that auctions kit model cars, but they're like old model kits. Apparently, I haven't really read the article yet, but apparently they make sure that everything's the way it's supposed to be. So you know what is going
Just
on.
like just like eBay.
No, no, it's the opposite of eBay. eBay, you don't know what you're getting until it shows
Right.
up. These guys are more like the old model kits site where the guy actually inspects every model and tells you the condition that that particular model and box and everything are in.
Oh,
Hey guys,
yes, what
I
can?
was going to say I am going to leave now. My wife is saying we must go, so I must go.
Okay,
Okay.
bye.
We're gonna go. It's Thursday night, even though it's not. It's gonna be whatever. Anyway, um, that's when we go over to our neighbor's house and play cards. So
Okay. Well, we're doing this on a Thursday night, not our normal night, so that's totally understandable. Ken, you go have fun. We'll see you next week.
okay, have a good time this weekend.
Oh, thanks.
Enjoy yourself, kid.
See you guys later.
Later on.
Bye-bye. Let me pass a little bit of information on to the Glue Troopers. Recently, I bought a kit that on eBay that was from Japan, and it was free shipping. And I bought the kit. They sent it and they gave me tracking, and it showed up, and it was fine. Everything was as was advertised. It was perfect. About a month later, I get a envelope from FedEx, and there's a bill in it for $13.65. And it has paperwork, who it's from, who the item was from, and it was from the guy I bought the model kit from. And I got a hold of them and I said it was free shipping. And they said, yeah, he paid the shipping, but this is the tariff. So you have to pay the tariff on the import duty. So if you're buying anything from China, Japan, from a hobby company, a hobby store, beware that you're going to get a bill for whatever the tariff is on that. In
They need to
addition
work
to,
out ahead of time with the people who's paying for the tariffs.
right. So buyer beware.
Well, yeah, that's sorry, it's there's definitely got to be an adjustment period. Hopefully this stuff all gets sorted out soon. We don't have to keep dealing with this, but I don't know, that may be the new normal. And
Yeah. Well, it's better to know up front than it is to be surprised like I was.
well, maybe, just maybe, Tamiya should open a factory inside the United States.
Yeah. And then they'll be even more expensive.
um, well, you know, Aurora got around the tariffs by shipping the mold
Molds.
to
Yeah.
Canada,
To
which
Canada.
got them into Europe for free, and then they also sent them to the UK eventually, because that's not finished product. That's, you know, equipment, which has a much lower fee
Right.
on it. You make all the models you want. That's why when people get one of those Aurora England models, it becomes such a treasured item because it's, you know, even though it's the exact same kit, it's just the idea that the mold, you know, the plastic was shot in Europe and it went in the box. And you know, people will pay a lot for something that's just a little bit different if it's indicates that it gives it some sort of rarity. The law to, by the way, completely shifting gears here. I don't know what just threw this thought in my mind. I'll send you the link if you want, but there is a 3D modeler out there, a guy who does videos and stuff. And as just today, about 20 hours ago, he put up his latest video, which is an unbelievably in-depth 3D tour of the Jupiter 2 from Lost in Space. Every panel, every switch. I mean, it can be used as a training aid. And I'm thinking, this is perfect because I had just laid everything out to start getting started on that. And this thing will make an excellent template. Um, because the instructions, huh?
Dan Monroe's probably salivating right now.
Yeah. Um, but that thing's going to be a real challenge because I really want it to look nice. I've got all the components to make all the photo etch and all the decals, and um, uh, you know, my wife just got me a little squirt bottle to put the baking soda and water in, so I can start using CA glue and squirting it with that stuff and get it to dry right away. You know, that's the old trick for getting uh, cyroacryl, however you say CA, to harden is to touch of water with a little baking soda, and it apparently works as a catalyst, so you don't have to sit there holding the part forever. I don't know how it's going to make the model look. I mean, you know, I'm guessing you have to paint it after you're done because I'm sure anything with baking soda in it's going to leave some kind of residue. Have you ever done that? Use the
No,
water and baking soda to get CA glues to harden quicker?
no.
Yeah, I have to experiment with it before it goes on the model. But since it's got that much photo etch, it's either CA glue or epoxy, and you know, I think CA glue is a little simpler.
Gorilla Glue works pretty good.
The Gorilla Glue works good, but the stuff I'm using, which might be for wood, it has a tendency to expand and foam up a little bit, and you got to chip that off. And it's not hard, but it's, you know, depending on where it goes. But yeah, it'll hold a lot. And
So, Mr. Van Osh, is that
I
his
believe
name?
it's Van Osh or Van Osh. I think it's Van Osh.
Okay, so he sent you roughly 107
7 kits,
kits,
if my count's correct.
and there's about 30 dupes.
All in all, yeah.
Hmm.
And the thing I got the
Now,
most of was the Cougars, which is great because it's one of my favorite jets. Um,
now of the dupes, were they all from the same era, or were some of
yeah,
them rebuilt?
most of them were, yes.
Hmm.
In fact, let's take a look at some of them. Here's another one of the Cougars. There were some that were different, like the B-52. There was, I think with the B-52, there was a tall box and a low box. So they weren't
Hmm.
all dupes. Uh, these are both H212-79. So I
Yeah, they
believe
all
these
look the
are
same.
identical.
Yeah, and there were 79-cent kits back then.
Yeah, probably both from 1954. You see if this one has the same 152, 1954. I'm going to be very careful. Put the lid straight down so I don't risk damaging these boxes. Um, oh, that's the way they go in there. Okay. Oh, okay. Now I see how it was packed. Okay, this one does not have the slip in there, so I'm assuming it's the exact same thing.
Yeah, so you got 3 kits there that are from 1954. and smell.
Some people do cocaine. I sniff old model airplane boxes. This is kept in a smoke-free environment too. There's no,
That's good. I wonder where he stored them, just for
it
argument's
was
sake.
definitely climate controlled.
Yeah.
Maybe just grab a couple of random kits on top here. We can maybe take a look at them. The B-24.
Okay.
This is H218.98, so it's a 98 cent kit. This is a different scale, of course. This is a 1 to 92 scale. And oh, here we go.
That's an odd box top because it's got the gear down.
Yeah. The gear looks like it hasn't started retracting yet, which is for I don't know why they did it this way. What I'm sure the art director had his reason, but that says 1955 to 1961, 1 to 92 scale, mismatched box halves. So this may not be the correct box top. It's not, because you know what? As Mike mentioned, here's the tape on the side, no tape on the
No
bottom.
tape on the bottom.
But he
Yeah.
even makes a note of that. I mean, this is beautifully organized. And nice thing about an oddball kit like this, though, is that this size of model doesn't eat up. It's big enough you can have some detail, but it doesn't eat everything up. And Mike Machat was telling me that this model actually is wonderfully proportioned. When you're done, it looks like a B-24. There's a lot of parts in this, so I'm a little leery about taking it out of the plastic because I'm afraid something's going to go taken off on me. But I mean, clean moldings. Again, I don't really see any flash. I see a lot of places where some parts have been clipped off and they're rattling loose in the plastic bag. So maybe I can get one piece out of here that we can look at without risking. Here's the fuselage half.
Oh, it's molded in nice color too.
Yeah. Again, you don't necessarily have to paint it.
Mm-hmm.
And the rivet lines and everything.
You know what's weird about the lines and the rivets in that?
What's that?
It doesn't show the doors. The retractable
Oh,
doors.
no, it's got the Bombay
fold.
doors right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What it does not show on the Bombay doors that I can see, it's just smooth. It doesn't show the I think that a little bit of that corrugated pattern so they could, so they could roll up and roll down.
Yeah, it looked like a garage door from a
But
warehouse.
they may have deemed that too subtle or too complicated, but you're right. That is something to say. And some of the seam lines are definitely oversized to emphasize them. It's like they put a few rivet patterns in here for detail. Not all of them that are in the airplane by any stretch of the imagination. But the shape is quite good. There's no flash. The quality of the plastic is excellent, reasonably thick.
When we were out in San Pedro at what, JP Hobbies, Mike made comment about the difference in the plastics from the 50s kits to the current kits, because the wings bend more in the new kits and the fuselages are a little more flexible. I remember he did make comment about that, and it's true. I mean, whether it be because, as you said, the molds are newer, but I think the plastic was different.
Well, I think the plastic was better, and I have a rationale for that. And my guess is that they found a cheaper way to make the plastic, and that's so they had to follow the cost line. At this point, what was gas? $9-10 a barrel back in the 50s, if that.
If that much.
So the cost of the styrene probably wasn't that big a deal. But as time goes by, petrol starts getting more and more expensive, largely because everybody and their brother post-war is industrializing and everybody needs fuel now. I mean, I'm just making a guess here, but that was what it,
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, people forget, not the people that are our age, but I mean, younger people, they don't realize what stuff cost back in the 50s and 60s because what the material costs were.
well, also, that was a time when the industrial processes were not as advanced as they are now. I mean, just the metal. I mean, to give you an example, most light aircraft have a four-cylinder engine made by Lycoming or Continental. The basic engines were designed in the 30s. All right. And the later ones are still just outgrowths of that same technology. But as you go by, the engine started getting better and better and better and more reliable just because metallurgy was improving. And
Mhm.
um, the World War II engines, a Mustang engine had about 75 hours on it before it needed some pretty extensive maintenance. If you were to take those compound radials like on the Connies and the like that had that turbo drive shaft, three turbos that actually physically shafted into the crankshaft to add another 400 horsepower to the engine, which is amazing. Just well, okay, that's why I shouldn't do things like that. It's okay. I will just set that there, real peaceable. Um, but uh, the if you were to make that very engine today with modern technology, they had a horrible reputation for reliability. There's nothing uncommon about seeing a late model Constellation or DC-7 coming in with three engines. Because one of those, the PTC, the power, the PRTs, the power return turbines, and as the mechanics used to call them, the parts return turbines, because you get finding chunks of an engine valve in one of them. If you were to make an engine with modern technology, you could make those engines far more reliable using the same design, just better materials. Um, so they were not as expensive. The better materials, often more difficult to make, required new engineering techniques, so they were more expensive. But my guess, well, that's just like they used to make beryllium copper. It was beryllium copper they used to make the molds out
Yes,
of.
molds out of,
I think
and
before
they
they realized
lasted
the stuff was
for,
toxic. Yeah,
but they
forever.
lasted forever,
You get
forever.
millions of pumps out of shots out of one. But nobody does that anymore. Technology now, let's just laser cut it out of steel with a CNC machine and a laser. We'll make it quicker, faster, cheaper. And you go, yeah, but it won't last long. That's okay. We're not making 9 million kits like we used to.
And if they think that it's not going to go for a lot of kits, they make them out of aluminum,
Mm-hmm.
which
And
are which has no life to them whatsoever. But if you're doing a limited run, it's okay.
you might get what 30,000 or something out of one.
Yeah, you probably get 50, but
Yeah, which is a month's run at Monogram. But
yeah,
but the but at the same time, that allows them to make models of a lot of stuff that they didn't used to. It used to be if you wanted, if you wanted an RB66, this is pretty much the only kit out there, and or B66. Now
with
there's
dropping bomb.
yeah, yeah, with a dropping bomb. But now there's probably a good solid half dozen of them, and oh my gosh, this is making a silver color. This, of course, it's got the big seam lines like you expect, but the workmanship is just beautiful. That it's also smooth and new and clean, and
Well, you also got to remember that back then, the molds weren't made with CNC machines.
they were yeah,
There
a
was a guy
lathe
who
and a
yep, they hand did them. I mean, it was an art, you know.
truly was, or as they say, it was a dark. Mold making was a dark science. It was a dark
Artist.
art. You know, you learn from Professor Snape. But the this when I was a kid, just but more parts, glue them together, slap the decals on, vroom vroom noises till next week when I buy another one. But now I look back at this, I really appreciate what went into making this, and every one of those little rivet heads and seam lines is hours of some guy's life. You know. One of the glue troopers said his dad was a mold guy for one of the companies, and he said it was nothing uncommon that he'd have this big heavy mold up on the kitchen table, and do with a little ball peen pam, you may make it, they wanted this change and that change and everything. You're dealing with steel here. This
It's not easy. I mean, and it's with some of the kits when they make a change, I mean, they actually have to cut out a part of the mold and then make a plug with the new impression of the part and stick it in. And they have all these holes that they can, you know, move them, different variations around in the mold. It's interesting to say the least.
a more recent example of that, how important molds are, was there was a movie made a few years ago about this girl who's a self-made millionaire. She was a flight attendant. And the name of the movie, I think, is Joy. And she invents
Oh,
this squeeze
oh
model,
yeah,
the
yeah, Joy
QVC thing,
from Joy for HSN.
HSN, Home Shopping
Yeah.
Network. All right. But she goes to Texas or wherever it is, or California, where the guys have taken her designs and they made a mold and they're popping them out without her license. And she gets all freaked out and tries to take the molds. And they only have one mold for the whole company, but that's and you realize that they're yes, it's that important. It's that hard to make, and it's that important. And it's
It's, you know, I mean, we look at this stuff today and, as you read off some of the prices, 79, 98. There were kits that were $1.29. Now, back then, when you were getting 25, 50 cents a week in an allowance, that meant you had to save up a couple of weeks, allowance or find other sources of income,
for me, it
you
was
know,
4 weeks, 30 cents a week. 4 weeks is $1.20. I'll have
to
to get a
go
model.
buy these kits. Now, nobody, and I say this with conviction, nobody ever thought that these things were going to be worth what they are today.
Of course not.
They were like,
Absolutely not.
there was something you bought for 79 or 99 cents. You put them together, and then they usually got thrown away or broken or disappeared in a move or whatever. Who would have thought this stuff would be worth what it is today?
Well, I
And
know
the
I
other thing
can.
is what we pay for some of them today.
Yeah. Oh,
You know,
but you're not. This is getting back. I was gonna say, because I'm a hopeless romantic. But when you buy something like this or hold something like this, you're not holding a model. You're holding a memory.
absolutely.
The. I mean, I can
Your
close my
whole
eyes and I'm back
your
at Chris
whole
Ozer McCrory's Five and
your
Dime in 1970.
you're holding the memory of you standing there looking at that on the shelf and saying, "Boy, look at that box art. I really want to build that."
Or in a lot of cases, with me being from a small town, looking in a magazine or a brochure, wishing I could hold one,
Yeah,
or
because
have
they
one.
didn't get it.
And I like what Mike talked about. There's another video that's going to drop in the morning. I don't know if he talked about it in the last one or the next ones, but these people that are like this guy on the tractor,
Hmm.
Linwood brought in models who put on the parkas and posed, and he painted them. And he did drawings and all these different, took photos and all these different configurations so that he could put them on the scenes later. So kind of a real life 3D modeling. But you
Well,
realize how much work, and he could crank one of these out in a day or two. It's amazing.
Keeler said when they would be doing a new kit and Lenwood would come in and they'd kind of give him an idea what they were looking for, and he'd have ideas that he thought it should be, and they'd agree on a theme. And he said he'd go home and he said he'd come back the next day or the day after and he'd have it all done. And then maybe they wanted this changed a little or that changed a little. He'd go home, make the changes, be done. So he said it would be like 2, 3 days, it would be done.
Tom Daniel was telling me when I misspoke about something. Daniel did do the TD did do the Munster coach, but he
Mhm.
said it was Barris's idea. He told me what he wanted, and then I drew it up. So I was like, okay, I misunderstood. And he told me he remembered, because this is when things were getting kind of a little lean for box top artists. And he took it to George, and George just gave him the check right there on the spot, and that was the last he saw of it. Very unceremonious. Took it to George's house. That looks good. Here's your check. Out the door. I got things to do. Okay, but he needed he went straight to the bank, cashed a check because it was apparently the holiday season, and he needed to buy gifts for the family. It was just a few $100s, 300, 400. But that when that kit come out, 68 or something, the Munster coach,
No, it was like 66.
okay, what was $400 or $500 worth in 19? I mean, people are making $35 a week,
That's a lot.
and
The only thing, though, that he's irritated about is that he was never officially given credit publicly for the design.
right, which is it was yeah, like you said, it was Barris's idea, but he drew it all up, and then they went with it, and it's but I don't have to tell you that the industry, these are businesses. These guys like Barrison, they don't have any emotional attachment to this stuff. It's money. It's how we make our bucks. Got to keep the product coming. And
Look, my good friend, who is a graphic artist, he did all the catalogs, the packaging, the sell sheets for Matchbox in the 70s and in the 80s. He drew up the logo that they still use to this day.
for Matchbox,
Yeah,
huh?
which he got paid $1,500 for. There were no rights,
Yeah.
that you could hold the rights and be paid in perpetuity, which would be very helpful because you'd still be getting money today.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you mention
That's
that
not
because
how
you'll
it was
notice
done. It
this one
was like you
says
were contracted.
this says famous aircraft series. It was originally the famous artist
There
series,
is, yeah,
but there was
artist
apparently because
series.
there's so I don't know if that's a signature right there or if that is a yeah, I think it's a signature. Apparently, it had something to do with when they did their famous artist series or some kind of rights hang up. Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
signature, and it's Linwood. And it's amazing. These guys can paint these magnificent photos, but they can't paint their signature in a way that you can read it. But now I have one of these in a that Mr. Van sent me in a bag also, but 1 to 140 scale, and of course, basically molded in color.
Mhm.
And again, now this one has a lot more rivet detail, 61 to 63, so it's probably a later, just a little bit later than this because there's a lot more rivet line pattern in this one. And
And that's currently been repopped by Atlantis.
yeah, and that's why one reason I'm glad I won't have to build this. I want to do when I get the Atlantis repop and pose it with it. That way I have new decals and I'm not chopping up a piece of history. But
See, the good thing is that a lot of the molds that were Revell and Aurora and some monogram molds that are still around, they were very, very well kept.
yes,
They really don't have any corrosive qualities. They're smooth.
yeah, Pete even
Maybe,
pointed out when they said that when they went to the warehouse to look at the molds, he was shocked how good a condition they'd all been wrapped and sealed. And the way the
yeah,
military packs up guns when they put them in the storage, Cosmoline or whatever. So they're
they were
all
all
yeah.
they were all greased. They were
Mm-hmm.
all, and at best, they needed to be polished, maybe
Mm-hmm.
before they were run again. That's about it. And when you consider these molds are, you know, what, 70 years old, 60
Mm-hmm.
years old, 50
60 to
years old,
70 years old in
and
most cases.
they've been moved around, as different companies bought different companies. They've been moved a lot, and they're still in really good shape, which is a testament to the craftsmanship of making them.
It is. In the case of the molds that Atlantis got, they were very fortunate. Aurora cut the molds. Then they shipped them to Morgan Grove. Of course, it was a train accident, so some of them were destroyed or damaged. But
Mhm.
Monogram triaged them. They said, okay, with these we know we're going to do, so put them on the line. We know we're going to make these. These we're not going to make, wrap them and seal them. These we're going to take a look at. So that was the basic triage. And the thing was is that luckily, even though the company had changed hands many times, Monogram changed with 9 times.
Mhm.
Hallmark and Odyssey and all these other companies that had them.
Trail.
But what winds up happening though is that most of those molds that were in storage were never moved. To my knowledge, they were always kept there, just held onto as a valuable asset. And as a result, even though some of the molds were moved around a lot, the ones that were used a lot, but a lot of them that were in storage, like the Godzilla molds, they were just parked there. And
And Monogram destroyed a lot of molds.
my understanding is that the ones they destroyed were the ones, okay, and there's a rationale behind this. This wasn't vandalism. Of course, they're the ones that were damaged, but the ones that they said these have no future, this is not, we're going to destroy them because we don't want someone to buy them and go into business
Right.
against us making them.
Right.
Which is really why they bought the Aurora stuff. But I don't know which ones they destroyed. It'd be interesting little homework project to find out. And but I would think the ones they destroyed, probably to recycle them for the beryllium copper. I would think that would be the ones that were either damaged or they already made that product and they didn't want a competing product, which is one reason they didn't sell the molds for a long time.
Well, there's a lot of the Revell molds that sort of disappeared that Monogram had, and it's a shame.
And this is where again we get back into the confusion. I don't know what the rationale is, but Revell didn't actually survive. Monogram survived. They bought Revell, but Revell apparently, as I understand it, and I believe it's according to Graham's books, Revell had a bigger international presence. So they went with the Revell, gave Revell dominance in the name for international recognition. But in reality, uh, it was Monogram Management that had the company. Eventually, they just absorbed the Revell name, but they still put out some kits. They did the Monogram Pro series, which were just their regular models with some photo etch and some stuff. They weren't anything super. I built one of them. It's a nice kit, but it's basically just a Monogram kit with a few marketing thing. But a couple of them, like the M60 tank or is the M48 Patton and uh, the Panzer IV, you still see them on the shelf listed as Monogram. I have no idea why certain select models they just decided to keep the Monogram logo. Isn't Snoopy done under a Monogram? Or no, he's done under Atlantis now. Okay.
No, he's done under Atlantis. He
Yeah.
was a Monogram kit.
Yeah. So I guess they had their reasons. I don't know what it was, but yeah, they may figure that everybody was just knew those kits as Monogram kits, so they did that to keep them selling. And they're a little Mark IV, and so they're good little kits. That's one reason they've been around so long. I built that Patton a bunch of times as a kid, and it was. I mean, you can still see them. It's one of the things Hobby Lobby still carries, and this is going to come out in a later video because it's going to be a time release video. But I went to Hobby Lobby the other day, and it was a 40% off day for models. And I just couldn't find anything to turn. I mean, I got 400 models here to take care of, but I was like, same stuff they always have.
I have the same problem when I go there. I look at it and I go, there's really nothing that I want to have here.
The thing they do rotate is some of their supplies. Sometimes they come up with stuff I haven't seen for sale.
The supplies, they do have stuff that moves in and out. But the models, it's very, very rare that they, add a whole bunch of new kits and make ones go away. They pretty much have the same stuff for a long time.
And I didn't see a lot of Atlanta stuff in there this time. May have just been bought out, and I know that's one of their bigger customers. They need to, well, without giving away any confidential business information, or I know you're trying to push some new stuff. Is there any progress being made on expanding their customer list?
Yeah, there's some good efforts. There's two things that works to their advantage right now. Is number one, they have all the molds and their own molding machines all in one facility now. So they can make the kits very quickly. The other one is they make them in the USA. There's no tariffs.
No tariffs.
There's no duty. So they have a big price advantage over the other manufacturers that still have stuff made in China.
And I would encourage since they have, I mean, it's not my money and it's not my business, so I have no say in this, but I'm just thinking you guys have a lot of untapped molds over there at Atlantis. They might want to consider expanding their product line a little bit.
There's 50 kits planned within the next 12 months to be released.
That's great. That's good to hear because yeah, I'm surprised that they haven't marketed Phil Saparano's Godzilla yet, the second Aurora one, because if they did that, you could get someone like Matt Line to do the box
Matt,
art. I mean, I'm sure he'd be thrilled to do it for a very reasonable price. He does great work. And in fact, he'd probably do several of them for you. You could have different side art and top art. I mean,
right.
that would be awesome. And in fact, I had this thought just yesterday. If you get someone like Matt who's hungry and wants to get into the business, have him do two of them and put them on opposite side, different one on each side of the box, the front and the back. And that way you could, I mean, I know the problem is it's got to match what's going on in the box or you risk getting sued, but you could do it from two different angles, you know, or maybe make a side panel. That's the one where he's tearing up Tokyo Tower. And I'm thinking, you do the nice, beautiful profile for the main box and flip it over, and you see it like from the side of the people in the tower and coming at them, or so, it's like, oh yeah, yeah, this is great.
Part of the problem there is the Toho license.
It's not that expensive, is it, for models?
It's not, but they have to get it, before they can move forward.
They've already had one before. They've got a working relationship. I would think
they did, and
because I don't care if it's 50 grand, he'd probably make that up with Godzilla, a new Godzilla kit.
yeah.
I mean, how many of the Rhedosaurs have they sold, and the big Polar Lights Godzilla? I think flies off the shelf. And I got one right here. It's probably the best Godzilla model ever made.
And then you got Monarch coming out with they're coming out with Gorgo and
Gorgo.
really good King Kong kit.
Oh no, that's Konga.
Konga.
Yeah.
Konga.
Which is I saw the buildup, which apparently they threw together real hard at the Nats, but you saw it. It looked great.
It's a nice kit.
And
They've got some other things in the works over at Monarch that's going to be really good.
He does. And I heard from him the other day, he hadn't forgotten about what he promised me, but Canadian postal system shut down. I didn't realize that. Has been for about 8 months. So hopefully that'll get fixed at some point in the near future. And I asked John Kidd, what are you guys doing? He goes, FedEx. I was like, wow, that ain't cheap. But speaking of Gorgo, something he should make is the giant behemoth. I don't think anybody's made a styrene model of that. And after what you and I said, I decided to go, educate myself on it because I don't recall ever seeing it. And the giant behemoth comes out in 59, Gorgo comes out in 61. Now, when I saw Gorgo at the theater, it had to be 68, 69, something. I had to be 7, 8, 9 years old. I had my little brother with me, so he had to be at least 6 or 7. So it might have been as late as 1970, right? And it was still in the theaters. I mean, remember 19, but I thought it was a new movie when I saw it, and I was like, since when do these older movies have 6 years? But then I realized that these movies, once they made their big initial run, that they could still wind up in, I guess, what you would call theater syndication, making the rounds between theaters, and didn't really understand how they, because okay, you'll appreciate this. You've probably got to be over 50 for this to make any sense. But I lived in a town of about 10,000 people. Tallahassee was 20 miles away, and it had a couple 100,000 people. So first run movies would go to 1 or 2 theaters in Tallahassee, right? For us to see the movie, because you have to remember these were physical prints of films on reels.
Right.
We either went to Tallahassee to watch the movie, or we could wait probably better than a month or 2 or 3 months, and it would make it, once it had hit all the big city theaters, then they started going to smaller and smaller markets and making the rounds. And so we often had to wait months to see a first run in our hometown. And I didn't appreciate it at the time because you're a kid, you don't know anything. But a lot of the movies they showed at my home theater were like grindhouse. I mean, type. I mean, we got Boxcar Bertha, Astro Zombies, Gorgo, 6 years after it came out.
Well, we talk about AIP. Now, what AIP used to do was you had Arkoff and you had Nicholson. Well, Arkoff was the the legal end because he was a lawyer, and Nicholson was the creative end, and he
Right.
knew the distribution business.
And they
So
made a
what
good
they would,
partnership because I don't think they got in each other's business.
no, they didn't. So what they did was Nicholson would come up with the name of the movie. That was how they started. He'd come up with a title, and then they'd figure out a script to go with the title. Okay, so what they would do is they would always do two movies. And then he would hit the road and go to all these people who were the distributors of the movies to the theaters. And they would want, like a monster and, they had combinations of movies they would put together
Hmm.
that these guys wanted to put in the theater. And that's how they would distribute the movies. And then they'd go back and make the movies.
In a week.
Yeah, 5 days, it would be done,
Yeah.
and then they'd ship them out and
It
they'd
probably
make the
took
stuff.
longer to produce the prints than it did to make the movie.
Probably took longer to make the posters, but
I
but you know, but then and they would, that's how they did it. I mean, it was an interesting way to go to market, but that's what they
I
did.
could see sitting there movie and just going, well, what do you got? How about Swedish bikini teamed vampires in prison?
Yeah,
I love
yeah. Let's do it. Get
it.
some blondes. Let's go.
And think about how many directors, actors, how many people probably got
Started
their
there.
start.
They all,
It always
yeah.
cracks up to see all these cheap movies, and you see what's now a big name actor, Leonard Nimoy or somebody, and
I
Radar
mean,
Men from the Moon, or
look at what you know they did with Roger Corman.
yep.
Half of the famous directors that have made very big movies came from him, and a lot of the stars
I think
came
Dennis
from
Hopper
him.
might have started
Dennis
with
Hopper,
Corman. I think Ron Howard
yeah,
did.
Ron Howard.
Um,
He Ron Howard wanted to learn how to direct, and he went to Corman,
he
and
did
Corman
Ground
said,
Theft
"Okay."
Auto or one of them, or
It was what the heck was it? Eat My Dust.
Eat My Dust. That's it.
That was
I
the
still
movie.
remember the poster. I was like, oh, look, little Opie
Yep,
Cunningham is
it's
drag
Opie.
racing with a ball cap.
Yep. And he had to agree to be in the movie, and then he would teach him how to direct. And that seemed to work out good for both of them.
Oh, the
You know?
Walking Tall movies. They were,
Oh yeah.
these are all, and
You
Swamp Thing and Swamp Girl. I remember that Swamp Girl. I mean, that one was made. I swore I watched that at the theater. I'm going, this movie has like 9 total actors and was shot entirely out in the swamps, and I'm like, it had a
yeah,
budget of probably 4,000, and its big was special guest Farley Granger. I'm like, who the heck is that? Some
right.
half known singer, they get some, D-level celebrity to make a cameo so they could get their name on the
Hill,
marquee. And
Hillbillies in a Haunted House.
yeah. Oh,
Okay.
they actually parodied that on The Simpsons one time when uh she's Homer's sick at home and Marge they're watching TV, goes, oh look, it's like the gods of Olympus with Norman Fell as Zeus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got one real actor in it.
I mean, look at Jack Nicholson.
Oh yeah, he was in
He
Easy
was in Little
Rider
Shop
and
of Horrors. He was
yeah.
in, a couple of those Corman movies before
Hmm.
he sort of hit mainstream.
Hmm. And but Roger Corman, God, the guy lived to be like 98. He only passed
Yeah,
away recently. But he said something that was interesting. He goes, people call me King of the Beast. He hated that title. He
yes, he
says,
did.
we worked very hard on every movie and we did what the budget allowed. And they didn't waste money. Arkoff was the same way. They're all cut from the same cloth of,
Yeah.
and I was like, if I was going to be an indie movie maker, that's what I made home movies as a kid and stuff like that. I was looking away to cardboard props and everything. I'm like, these guys were, in my opinion, they were geniuses. I look at it's almost gotten to the point that the bigger the budget, the less I expect from the movie. I look at some of these big box office bombs and I'm like, 230, $400 million on what? You know?
Well, and then you say to yourself, okay, they spent 300 million to make the movie. They got to make 700 million to make a profit.
Yeah, because I got another 100 million in marketing expenses.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of tickets. I mean, I don't care how much the tickets are.
What always
But
shocked
you
me
know
is when they
what?
got these big $100 million budgets to make an animated film. I'm like, it's animation.
Right.
It just makes no sense.
Well,
Um,
but you know what? when you look at some of those movies from especially the 50s that were made on a shoestring budget with very limited effects, and you look at them and you go, you know what? They're not half bad.
No, not really. A lot of them had good premises. There
Yeah,
was
they
one of
did.
them, I forget the name of it, where the alien ship crashes on Earth and it's a zoological ship and like four of the specimens escape. The alien takes on human form to hunt them down, but at the end he gets killed. The special effects were absolutely horrible, horrific. I mean, it was bad. The police car was like a two-door Nova with one of those magnet lights on top. You know, it was really bad. But I was thinking, you know what? The premise is actually pretty cool. Pretty cool. A
Yeah.
zoological expedition crashes on Earth, so we're fighting, and it's been used by other movies like the I forget the one with the Predator crashes on her, but
I remember when I first got cable TV, which was like 1977. Okay. And the only thing that was on cable TV in terms of movies were like the movies that were like the B and C part of the second bill.
hmm
And but you watched a lot of these movies that you wouldn't have paid to go in the movies, and you go,
yeah,
that wasn't that bad because
yeah.
it had a story. It had, up and coming actors. They were really good, but they didn't get the notoriety of the big budget stuff.
When Glenn Campbell was on the rise in the 60s, his he was already a well-known musician and guitar player, but he got his acting break in True Grit,
Right.
which was everyone was like, "Who's this nobody's musician and why is he in a John Wayne movie?" He did a good enough job to make it, and I don't know if they made it before or after, but he made another movie with Dom DeLuise and old Gomer Pyle, Jim Neighbors, I think it was Jim Neighbors, where they're two Marine corporals getting out of the Corps, and he goes home and he's basically a country boy. It's just his life at home after he gets out of the Marine Corps doing silly stuff. He sees the chicken in the dress and just goes and takes it because a chicken shouldn't be in a dress in a shop window. Weird little stuff like it's a quirk film, quirky little film, and it gives him a chance to play the guitar and sing some of his music. But the thing is I went to go see True Grit. Well, Norwood was the second bill, and they were doing a
Okay.
Glenn Campbell thing, two Glenn Campbell movies, and uh, and I sat through it because I'd paid my 35 cents. And I found it a funny, cute film. Dom DeLuise is always funny, it was like, hey, what do you know? Gomer finally made corporal. They're both, I was like, 'cause Jim Neighbors wearing corporal. Hey, Gomer finally made corporal. By the way, did you ever see a skit they did? I don't know which show it was, Mad TV or one of them, or in Living Color, with Gunny Pile.
No.
USMC, where Gomer's now a master sergeant or gunnery sergeant. He's
Oh
like a
God.
he's like a stark raving crazy, psychotic killing machine going after the bad guys, saying Shazam! It's like, good lord, it's nothing sacred. Um, so, but
No, there were a lot of good movies that, you never would have seen except for cable TV.
that's true.
Now that being said, there's a lot of bad movies that you wish you never saw because of cable TV.
Yeah, you got to see the decline of Jerry Lewis's work,
Yeah.
from doing, Delicate Delinquent and all these movies that had real texture. And in the 60s, I guess it was, he was making a lot of color movies that were actually not bad, Cinderfella and Who's Minding the Store, The Disorderly Orderly, Hook, Line, and Sinker. But for some reason, that one kept playing locally. I guess they just had a copy of it. But we always stay, we're 8, 10 years old. We're big Jerry Lewis fans, so we stayed up, watched the Pratfall. And uh, but then I learned later on that the reason he was making so many movies was he was like Lucille Ball. He had extremely tight cost control. He was very methodical. He ran it like a military camp. He could crank them out fast and cheap. And they said he was a hard guy to work for. He's extremely demanding, but everyone knew he was a genius. They gave him what he wanted, and almost all of his movies made money. But then they did. But then they said in the late '60s, early '70s, Vietnam's going on. Nobody wanted to see this fluff fair anymore.
No,
And his camp had run its course. It wasn't funny anymore.
he
And
didn't
like
change with the
that, he
time.
quit doing them. And
He didn't change with the times.
no, he didn't. You know who did change with the times uh, a little bit? I think was Sinatra.
Yeah.
I mean, he was doing the Roman films, was
Yeah,
Dick Roman or whatever it was, but
Tony Ro
Tony Roman,
Tony Rome.
Tony Rome, but his characters got a little darker, a little more believable.
Yeah,
Um,
then he played, what was it, the detective or the lieutenant or something, where he played a cop.
yeah, and I know it was Harvey Keitel was the bad lieutenant, but that was years later. But like Dean Martin, he was just always Dean Martin. Once he quit making the
Yep.
John Wayne Westerns, that stuff, he just went back to doing television and shit. But all of them were making so much money with their
Well,
music and everything.
he did those Matt Helm movies.
But those are all in the '60s, yeah. But
Oh yeah,
that's when James Bond was super popular.
yeah.
And like Flint, the Flint movies and the Matt Helm movies do not. I mean, I love them. I watched them all, and I got a big kick out of them. But in my view, they don't hold up compared to the Ian Fleming stuff, the Bond
No,
movie.
they were comedies really because they played them tongue in cheek.
My favorite line in the Flint movie, I forget, is "In like Flint" or "Our Man Flint," but when he's on the island trying to move in with just fit
Yeah.
in with the people going, and the bald eagle sees him and he goes, "Yes, it's been trained to find Americans." He makes a comment, "A bald eagle trained to find Americans. How diabolical!" Yeah.
I got, you talk about lines you remember from movies. There was this movie with John Voight and Burt Young and Anne Margaret. And John Voight and Burt Young are degenerate, big time gamblers.
Hmm.
And they go from winning a tremendous amount of money at a card game to being able to go bail out the Rolls Royce that got, taken away.
Hmm.
So the story builds, and John Voight has this system, and we got to go back to Vegas, and it's not going to be like the last time, and we're going to clean up. And he goes back to Vegas, and Anne Margaret works in one of the casinos, and him and her were an item at some point, so there's
Hmm.
this little romantic thing. So he sits down at the table and he's playing, and he's losing like bleeding money. Okay. So Burt Young leans in and he goes, "I think maybe, you should kind of cool it. Maybe the system isn't working." He goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "This is deficit spending." He goes, "Countries do this." I just cracked up. I thought that was hysterical. Never forgot that. Oh man, that is funny.
uh, I remember some of the movies, they were starting to have darker tones in the '70s and the late '60s. Society was having more issues. The movie with, was it Richard Widmark, Madigan? You know,
Hmm.
they don't normally kill off the good, the hero at the end. And I was like, that was one of the first cop movies I saw with that. And of course, they brought him back to life when they got the TV show. But
Right.
it was one of those things that I was like, by the '70s though, nobody, military. Patton was made in '70 and got the Academy Award, but I don't think it actually made that much money initially. Movies like The Battle of Britain, Tor, had all come out about then. They were all big productions, extremely well made. In fact, Elmo Williams films like that and The Longest Day, which was shot in black and white on purpose, they all were high dollar films that were highly regarded by the critics, but a lot of them squeaked by. Some of them
Yeah.
didn't even make their money back initially, and that was people realized that people don't want these patriotic war movies anymore. And you notice in the '70s you get The Dirty Dozen,
Right.
very anti-hero film.
Well,
Uh,
you also got a lot of movies like The Last Detail,
yeah,
Coming Home,
uh-huh.
those kind of movies, The Deer Hunter, those kind of movies that kind of showed the aftermath,
Hmm. Or the dark
of
side, the psychological
right.
side, yeah. And I was like, didn't really. I mean, not that they aren't great movies, they just were, but that was what the public seemed to have an appetite for. The actor that in the Deer Hunter that played his buddy, the ones in the tuxedo and out in the woods, when
Oh,
the
John
movie,
Cazale.
yeah, he died shortly after that. Apparently, he was already suffering from cancer when they made that movie,
Yes.
and
Yes. He was with Diane Keaton with Meryl Streep.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
He had cancer when he did The Godfather too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a good actor. Everybody got robbed of great talent.
Every movie he was in, just about, won an Academy Award.
Yeah.
He was in Dog Day
The
Afternoon. He was in The
afternoon.
Deer Hunter, and he was in The Godfather.
Godfather. Yeah. And see, Dog Day Afternoon may be the movie I think that the very touched very strongly on the sentiment in New York in the 70s.
Yes.
You know, it was just remember you weren't living up there when they had the blackout, were you?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Fun
The
times.
first the first thing I did was go to the closet and load the gun.
I
That was the
you were
first.
you in the city or were you up New Rochelle?
Yeah, yeah, no,
Oh,
we lived in the yeah,
man,
we
there were
lived in
mass looting and everything, you
yeah.
know.
The I'll tell you a funny story. I was working in toy business back then, and the power sort of came back on the next morning. And so I'm watching the news, and there's a reporter in Brooklyn, and he's in front of this building, and it's a warehouse building, and people are running out of there with armloads of stuff. And I look and they pan and I look at the sign. It's one of my customers who's a toy distributor. So now everything kind of calms down. So I go to make a call on this guy the last week, and the next week, and I walk in and I go, Jackie. Oh, his name was Jackie Horowitz. I said, Jackie, I'm really sorry. I saw, they robbed you. The power went out. He says, what are you kidding? He says, I went down and opened the doors. I was insured for everything. I had stuff that was 30 years old I couldn't get rid of. I was like, oh,
I consider that an inventory cleansing.
Yeah.
Well, the yeah, I mean, I grew up and even joined the army, started my military service, went to high school in the 70s. I have a lot of fond memories, but sometimes when I start remembering, we have a tendency to look back very fondly, but there's a lot of crap about that era that was really bad too. Not to mention the cars.
Yes.
That's probably the worst
But
decade in American automotive history.
it
Uh,
was bad. It was,
the
it
the
was,
styles weren't. Some of the styles were okay, but
yeah,
I,
but the cars were crap.
just and I had a couple of them, so I can test full firsthand. Uh, and oh, what's his name? Ed over at Ed's Auto Reviews, the Belgian guy that
Mhm.
does all the American car videos. I love his
Mhm.
stuff. And I love that quirky accent he's got. But he did a 4-part series called the Malaise Era, and if
Yes,
you
I saw it.
it was that not good.
No, it was on
And
the money.
but my question to you, and you're a car guy, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to get a kit of a 77 Malibu because I had
Hmm.
one. Were the
I had one
Malibus all
too.
2 doors or were they 4 doors? They were
No,
four.
they had 2-door and four,
Yeah,
and they
you'd
had
think I could remember if I was a 2 door or 4 door.
a station wagon.
I think mine was a 4 door. You'd think I would remember that. I never took a photo of it because we didn't have cell phones back then. That car I had for a couple of years, got me through college. I went through a transmission, didn't get a new one, but I had like a $700 repair. They effectively rebuilt it, and I had to drop another engine in it. And
Well,
then that engine sucked a valve as I was pulling into the Honda dealership to look at buying and replacing it. And it was a 1977, the height of the Malaise era. And in 2 years later, the 79, you look at a 77 and 79, you can't believe they're part of the same car design by it. And I was like, man,
I had a 75 when I went to work for Matchbox. We got company cars, so I went to work there in 75. I got a 75 Malibu Classic. Then 2 years later, I got a 77 Malibu Classic 2-door, and I pick it up from the dealer, and I drive it home, and I'm like, something's kind of funny. There's like something in the accelerator pedal. It's like I'm getting strange vibrations. I can't figure out what it is. So I get home and I call the dealer and I said, listen, and he said, bring the car back tomorrow and we'll take a look at it. So I drive the car back, and service guy comes out. He opens the hood. The guy listens. He goes, it's the fan hitting the shroud. I said, no, it's not. I said, it's in the engine. No, 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 no. And he rips the shroud off the radiator. And I go, see, it's still doing it. I said, would you get somebody over here who knows what's going on? He gets some old guy who's all bent over because he's been working on cars probably since he was 15. And he's zipping the throttle. And I said, it sounds like the crank's coming out the bottom of the engine. He goes, yeah, it is. He says, you can't drive this car. I'm like, what? They had a run of bad crankshafts that
yeah,
they
it
put in
happens.
cars. And so here is my car with 108 miles on it. And they said, we got to, see if we can get a crankshaft. I said, well, what do you mean? I said, if you got a bad crank, you probably spun the bearings and you probably cocked the piston. I said, you got to put a short block in it. Oh, no, we have to go step by step. So I said, okay. I said, I'm going to need a car. And he says, well, your transportation isn't our problem. So I had to call work up. Luckily, we had extra cars because, so they came over and they gave me another car. So now my son's godfather, to work for GM, he calls me up like 2 days, like a day later, and he goes, how do you like the new car? I said, would you really like to know how I like the new car? I tell him the story. He goes, oh, it's got a 305, right? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, they had a run of bad cranks. He goes, where is it? So I said, oh, it's at this dealer over here. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is like 10 o'clock in the morning. All right. The next morning, I get a call from the dealer, and they're very nice, and your car will be ready at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, okay. So now about 2 o'clock, I get a phone call from my son's godfather. And he says to me, did the dealer call you about your car? I said, yeah. He said, they were really nice to you, weren't they? I was like, yeah. He goes, yeah, they're figuring, who does this guy know that they could air freight an engine in overnight and drop into your car? He had them pull an engine off the line. They crated it up and they shipped it, and it was there the next morning. And they dropped it in the car. Well, I had that car for 2 years, bought it from the leasing company. My wife took it for 2 years. We sold it to some guy in her neighborhood. He had it for about another 15 years.
Found a winner.
But they were horrible back then. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff that went wrong with them, and the fix was, oh, we'll just change everything. Well,
Yep.
that was when I said to myself, it's really better to lease it than it is to own it because it's under warranty the whole time.
Something to be said for that. Well, that brings up a question. We all know what the worst kit model car of the 1970s was, the 79 Trans Am from NBC.
Yes.
What would you say is the best of the kit model 1970 series cars? What would you say is the best kit you've built of a car that existed that was made in the 70s?
That's a tough one. I would have to say, oh, not everybody's going to agree with this, but I'd say a Porsche 911.
Okay. Is that a Tamiya kit or a?
Yeah, Tamiya
Yeah.
kit. Well, a couple of people made them. Haskell made them. Tamiya made them. That was the best kit because the American cars, they were crap. There were a lot of, at that point, there was a couple of Firebird kits. There were a lot of Camaro kits.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will say 69 Camaro because that's when they came out with it. A lot of people will probably say 69. A lot of people will say Mustang. There were some good kits in that era of cars, but the cars themselves, a really nice kit was like a 69 Mustang Mach 1. It was a really nice kit.
The probably the best kit of that era I built was, believe it or not, the Lindbergh Polara, the 64 Polara. I know
The
that's actually not
Dodge.
70s,
Yeah.
but that was late Lindbergh when it was being run by
Totif.
Totif.
Yeah.
So I was like, I did not expect this kind of quality from Lindbergh.
Well,
The NPC kits have been pretty strong. I mean,
he
excuse me,
turned
the
them
AMT
around.
kits. Hmm?
He turned them around.
He did. But I mean, it was
Because
better than an AMT or an NPC kit.
you had a lot of good IMC kits.
Hmm.
They were very quirky, but they were really good kits if you could, build them. And you also had a lot of good race car kits from Tamiya.
I figured Tamiya, I don't know if they've ever actually made what I'd call a bad kit. Some aren't quite as good as others, but
No, they're kind of like the gold standard.
yeah, I don't think I built a Hasegawa car,
They're
but
not bad. Not bad.
problem with Hasegawas, they tend to be, well, I think they're overpriced. But the
They
only
sold a
car I
lot of
have here on the shelf here is a AMT 57 Chevy and some military vehicles, and I got my tractor trailer I need to do at some point, but
they sold a lot of Mustang kits in that era. because they came out with a lot of Mustang kits.
Well, a lot of guys they build the car they had or they build the car they wanted.
They wanted.
And Mustangs are everywhere.
Look, they sold a ton of Mustangs, and with the exception of the Mustang 2, they were okay.
Yeah. Well, it's okay if the Mustang 2 kit sucked because the Mustang 2 sucked. Although it sold very well though.
It did, but people were disappointed in it because
It
it
was an
was so
economy car dressed up as a
right. It was a Pinto dressed up as a Mustang, is what it
mhm.
was.
And yeah, but I knew some guys had. But I watched. I think it might have been Ed that did. He said, but they sold millions of them. They really saved the company. Just like the
They
K
did.
car, that
Yep.
thing saved Chrysler.
If it wasn't for them, they would have been gone. And well, it was actually the minivan.
Yeah, that too. The K
The
car. Wasn't
minivan.
Iacocca behind the K car?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, you got
He
to
was
give Lee
in.
Iacocca credit. That guy knew he knew his industry.
He was really ahead of the curve when he
Can you
worked for
imagine if
Ford.
Ford had kept him instead of chasing him off?
Yeah, yeah. He well, see, the reason was that Henry didn't like that he was more popular than he was
Hmm.
because he was the one who really, pushed the Mustang.
Oh, please, Steve. You expect me to believe that an
Yeah.
automobile executive and son or grandson of Henry Ford would have an ego issue? Please, come on. People aren't that shallow. Said no one ever worked for him ever.
Iacocca used to work in the like Philadelphia zone, so to speak, of Ford. He was like the sales director. And he came up with this thing in 56 that you could own a 56 for $56 a month. And
Which is
which
not as small as it sounds today.
no, it was not small, but that's what he came up. And they sold a lot of cars. So then they promoted him and they brought him to Dearborn and he had a bunch of hits and then he was the one behind the Mustang. And that really
That's what
jolly
really
started
got him noticed.
star. Yeah. Well, now
Okay.
his family, okay, his choice when he graduated college was to either go to work for Ford or go to work for the family business, which they had a couple of restaurants in the sort of Allentown area in Pennsylvania. They're still in business to this day, called Yakko's Hot Dogs.
Cool.
And they're still in business to this day. But then when he got fired and he went over to Chrysler, it was a genius move that they put him in the commercials because he was very believable. And then what he did was with the K car, the van was the push item because it was different. And it was
Hmm.
the first time you could have something of that
There
design
was
that was
really
big.
nothing to compare to it up to
No,
that point.
they were way ahead of the curve and it fit in the garage, which
Hmm.
was a big plus. Then he took the regular K cars and he went to the rent-a-car companies because if you remember in those days,
Yep.
that was what all the fleets of the rent-a-cars
I
were
was going to
made of.
say he sold them to a lot of fleets, police departments,
Yep.
security firms, everybody. Yeah, the military. In the army, we had a bunch of them as MP
And that
cars.
and then the public followed. So that was really what saved the company. Plus he got that government loan
Yeah,
that they paid back in like a ridiculously quick period
and the
of time.
government did make money on that, by the
They
way.
did.
Yeah.
They paid interest on it.
Uh, I'm normally not a big idea. I'm not a big fan of the government giving money to private sector, but that time it was a good idea. Well, let me ask you this: it's 1956. You're going to go out and buy a brand new car. What would you buy?
Is money and is money an object?
Reasonable. I mean, not going to buy a gold-plated Cadillac, but
No,
you
but
know,
if I would buy a 56 Lincoln Mark II.
yeah, okay. All right.
That's what I would buy.
56 Bel Air convertible, two-door convertible, or two-door hardtop. Uh,
My
uh,
dad had a 56 Bel Air. I
but
remember
I
that as
think
a
I think
kid.
a convertible probably get those weird rear tires on it. At the what do they
Mhm.
call that thing when they put the tire on the shell on the outside of the trunk in the back?
Continental kit.
Continental kit. That was it. Well, Steve, it's time for me. I have to run, so I appreciate you coming
Okay.
out and doing the video with me. So we'll say goodbye, and I'll end the Zoom, and then I'll post it to go live Sunday at or Saturday at 7.
Well, good night, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're having a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Guys, I know it's not a live stream. It's the best I can do in the circumstances. Hope you had some fun. You take care of yourselves, and as always, model on.